Hello everybody, Z-Tech here. Today we're going to start off a whole series about NAS software. I currently use Unread as my NAS. It is mainly used as my NAS. That's, of course, the intended purpose. I use it as my media center player. So I've got Plex, Jellyfin, a whole bunch of my media files on there. I use it as a backup target for PCs in my house. So all the PCs in my house are running Veeam and they're backed up to my Unraid server nightly. On top of that, my Proxmox machine is also backed up nightly to the Unraid machine. And on top of that, I do use the NAS for my business purposes. I do host some files off of there. So my NAS is a pretty critical piece of equipment that I use. Now, I've been using Unraid for the last 4 or 5 years now, and honestly, it's been running quite well. No real issues, so to speak of. There are some quirks here and there that, really do bother me, but the good thing is that Unraid is a product that's continually updated and new features are coming. They squash bugs fairly quickly and I really love the community and the plugins, the plethora of plugins. You can basically do pretty much anything you want with your Unraid NAS. Now, that being said, there's a couple of things that we need to understand, or that I want to tell you about why I picked Unraid to begin with. So let's start with a little bit of history as far as NASs are concerned, and myself. So I started using NASs a very, very long time ago. I do remember in the beginning, I had a spare PC, put in drives in there, do some Windows storage spaces and start sharing that using Windows. So in the beginning, I started off using NASs quite simply. I had a PC, actually my own PC, plugged in a couple of extra hard drives in there and shared them through my Windows installation. The issue with that is that if my PC is down, my network, or rather my NAS is down also, and that was no good. But as a single user, it was okay. But then as more people in my household started using the NAS, it became important for me to have a standalone dedicated NAS that's not affected, let's say, by my PC. Whether I turn it on, turn it off, upgrade it, do whatever I want with it, it doesn't affect the NAS. So what I did is that I graduated to a Synology NAS, right? So one of the first NASs I used was a Drobo. I don't know if you've heard of that company, but let's look it up. Drobo. Drobo. Oh wow, Drobo products are dead. Okay, fantastic. So yeah, my NAS looked something like this one, this tower type unit. It was a Drobo. It was really great. It worked well. The issue was at that time when the Drobo was out, it was kind of slow, even by that by that time frame. It was considered a slow product. Anyways, it worked well. I used it for a while. I think I gave it to my brother-in-law as a gift when I graduated. I graduated to a Synology NAS. Now, the Synology NAS was a real eye-opener for me because it was the first, proper, I don't want to say corporate class, but yeah, you could say that corporate class NAS. Had a lot of features, iSCSI, NFS, all sorts of stuff. It was fantastic. So what happened was that I started off with the Synology NAS for one main reason only, and the reason is that Synology had something called SHR, which is Synology Hybrid RAID. And while that may not make a lot of sense in corporate scenarios, it made a lot of sense for me in a home user scenario, which was that you can mix and match different drive sizes. It kind of took care of the different drive sizes and gave you the maximal amount of space available. For example, let's say at that time you start off with a 500 gig drive or a 1 terabyte drive, you plug it in, a month or two or a couple of months pass, and then a 1 terabyte's again on sale. You plug in a 1 terabyte, suddenly you have 2 terabytes of storage. And then, 6 months later, a 2 terabyte drive's on sale. You plug in a 2 terabyte, it automatically works with mismatched size drives and, kind of maximizes the storage for you. And that was a really fantastic killer feature for me, simply because as a home user, it's expensive to buy 5, 1 terabyte drives at that time. This is many, many years ago. We're talking like 15 years ago. It was expensive to buy, 5, 1 or 2 terabyte drives in one shot as a home user. So, I would always look for the sales and discounts and, pick up drives, either onesies or sometimes a pair and plug them in. But I kind of outgrew that because the issue for me is that it only had 5 bays and, you're kind of limited. You start off, yes, it works well until you populate all 5 drive bays. Then suddenly you have to, remove one drive. So what I mean by that is that, for example, let's say if all 5 of my drives are populated with 1 terabyte drives, and if I get a 2 terabyte drive, technically speaking, if I replace one of the drives with a 2 terabyte drive, I'm only gaining a terabyte difference. So basically that 1 terabyte that I had is out and it's replaced by a 2 terabyte. So the 1 terabyte's consumed and I only have 1 extra terabyte. So you're basically paying for a 2 terabyte drive, but kind of like seeing 1 terabyte extra in there. Fair enough. I mean, it all makes sense. And the biggest issue for me was that I kind of wanted more drive base. So I used the Synology NAS for quite a while. In fact, it's still in my garage somewhere, I think in storage box. It works, but it's unused right now. So I did a lot of research and I kind of wanted similar functionality to the Synology NAS, like SHR, the hybrid RAID, where I can mix and match drives. And my initial research led me to Unread, and that's what I currently use today. So if you look at my Unread screen, as you can see here, all my drives are pretty much, mix and match, right? I've got an 8 terabyte parity drive, 4 terabytes here, 4 terabyte, 8 terabyte, 4 terabyte, 6, 4, and 4. So as you can see, the good thing about Unraid is I can mix and match drives, and I pretty much get, all the space of all these drives minus the parity drive, which makes a lot of sense. However, that being said, the way Unread is, the way it's constructed or designed, it really doesn't utilize multiple drives for either reading or writing. All right, so I'll give you a little bit of a flow of how Unread works. So I have a cache drive here, which I've enabled. So depending on the shares I have, certain shares utilizing the cache, certain not. So what happens is that, for example, let's give you 2 scenarios. One scenario is that there's a share that's not using the cache drive. So what happens if PC, let's say my PC here, I copy to that share, what it'll do is that it will basically split the files to multiple drives, right? So let's say if I'm copying an ISO that's 4 terabytes large, it'll copy it to a drive. There's a logic which is the least free, which I'm using right now. Most free. So it would probably be one of these 1.18 terabyte drives. So I'll start copying it here, right? It's a 4 gigabyte ISO file. Let's say I'm copying 2 drives, 2 files that are, say, 4 terabytes each, or 4 gigabytes each. What'll happen is it'll copy the first file on this drive here, the 1.18. It'll consume it, basically reducing it by 400 gigabytes. So it'll become, 1.14, for example. What happens is that 1.14 is now smaller than, the other ones, which are larger. So 1.17 is larger. So then the second 4 gigabyte file, it'll copy to this drive here, right? But in the end, it's using 1 drive per copy operation. In the case of a cache, let's say the share has a cache drive, it'll dump all the files into the cache drive, so this SSD over here, and then, I've got hourly movers set up. So every hour it'll go and it'll basically flush out that cache drive, and it'll use that same logic again, right? So it'll basically copy the file until this becomes, not the most free, and then it'll go to the most free and copy it, there. So one way it does redundancy to a certain degree. It's not really redundancy. Is that depending on the size of the files, it might copy a folder that you're copying over in multiple drives, just because it's not fitting the the logic that I've set up for the files, or copying rather. And same thing goes for read. Let's say if I'm reading or I'm copying from the Unraid NAS to my computer, those two files I copied, each one is, let's say, 4 gigabytes, and one file sits on this drive, one file sits on that drive. So what will happen is that it'll sequentially go. It'll first read from this one drive, and then once that file is copied over, then it'll switch over to the other drive where that second file is, the ISO file is, and it'll copy it over to there. So, I mean, technically it is using 2 drives to copy over, but not simultaneously. It's more sequential. Now, where does the problem come in? The problem comes in is that it's limited by the speed of the drive, correct? Now, I'm on a gigabit network, so I really haven't seen much of an issue, but I am considering upgrading my network to a 10 gigabit network. There's a lot of big files that I copy over, and I'll be honest with you, a gigabit is kind of slow these days. So I might upgrade to a 2.5, or I might just go straight up 10. Most probably it'll be 10, at least between the Unraid server and my machine, right? Anything else, I really don't care that much, but I do copy quite a lot of, multi-gigabyte, sometimes terabyte style files or folders. So I do need the speed, especially when I'm imaging a client's computer or whatnot. Anyways. So that's basically how Unraid works. So while it does give you the flexibility of mixing and matching drives, the way that Unraid works is that, it's pretty much a single drive only. Yes, it does use a little bit of smart tricks to kind of split the files here and there to give you that faster speed, but in essence, it's not really that fast. As you know, Linus Tech Tips was a big user of Unraid, and when they upgraded their network to 10, or I think whatever 40 gig network that they have right now, they immediately found that Unraid was a bottleneck simply because just the way it's designed, right? Now you could technically up the cache drive to 8 terabyte SSD, but especially with the way Linus Tech Tip works, their files, I'm sure one shoot probably exceeds 8 terabytes. So it's going to consume that cache pretty quickly. It's not a really efficient way if you're doing a lot of usage on the NAS. I think Unraid is not, designed for more corporate type of scenarios. Again, it really depends, but I would say that Unraid is more of a home user type of NAS. So because of this reason, I do want to move, or rather explore other NAS offerings out there that may or may not suit my needs. All right, so my needs are pretty simple right now, is that I need to be able to use all my drives as much as possible with minimal wastage. Now, we're going to explore all the NAS software and kind of see how they all work. So if you do have any suggestions that I'm missing out on, let me know. I'll try my best to get it done in, this series. But this series is going to be quite big. We're going to talk about Unraid, which I already have. We're going to talk about Rockstore. We're going to talk about Amahi. We're going to talk about Open Media Vault, Sigma NAS, Open Dedupe, Open Filer, TrueNAS, of course, the granddaddy of them all, TrueNAS, and any other NAS software that you would like me to have a look at. There's a couple of things that I would like from the NAS software. One of them I already mentioned is to utilize my existing hard drives as much as possible. Second thing, while I don't run any VMs on my Unraid, they're all on my Proxmox, I do run a fair bit of Docker containers, and this is all for my media stuff. Now, while it's not 100% critical for me to have these media software on a NAS, I would like it just simply because it makes my life easier. But let's just say if a NAS software, for example, like Rockstore, if it's a really solid NAS product, I do have enough hardware at home to spin up a dedicated Docker machine that basically has a GPU in it for transcoding. That'll basically run all of these Docker containers. So it's not the end of the world, although I would like to have everything in just, one neat and tidy box. I am still willing to split out the Docker containers to a different machine, provided the NAS component is exceptional. So since I have Unraid installed, let's have a quick look at Unraid. Unraid, again, is a NAS software. It's not free, it's paid. I think there's a free tier, but either it's time limited or drive limited, but you basically pay for Unraid. Let's look at the pricing for Unraid. There we go. So, I mean, you pay $60 for 6 storage devices, $89 for 12, and $129 for unlimited. Yes, there we go. So you do get a 30-day trial. You can basically get any one of these, try it free for 30 days, and then you have to subscribe. Sorry, purchase, not subscribe. That's the good thing, is that while it sucks that you do have to pay money, I don't mind because it's a one-time fee, and I think I started off with the basic, I upgraded to the plus, and I might have the pro now, or I think I might be at the plus, simply because I don't have that many drives. The good thing is that the Unraid does work on consumer level hardware. You could put it on server level hardware too. It does boot off of a USB key. Now that's one thing also I don't like, simply because again, USB keys tend to wear out over time. I haven't had really that many issues, so, knock on wood, but they do wear out. I would like not to, boot off of a USB key. So that's one thing. If you look here, those are the specs of my Unraid system. It's an 11th gen i5 11400. Running on an Asus Prime H570. I do have a gigabit built-in network card. I've got a RTX A2000. In my machine that I use for transcoding purposes. It's got 32 gigs of RAM, and then all these hard drives over here. So as you can see here, that's my full list of hard drives, and it's got a 1 terabyte, I think this is a WD Black SN750 cache drive. So all that's good. As you can see here, again, you set up your shares, you've got your users, a lot of settings you can play around with here. Plugins, for kind of tweaking your NAS. You've got your Docker containers. You could run Windows or any other type of VMs. And, the really nice thing about Unread is the App Store. It's just super extensive. Pretty much whatever you think of, you could easily deploy it on Unraid. So I really do like this about Unraid. Again, you can see just the backup section or category has 79 apps that you can deploy on it depending on your need. If you look at, for example, media servers, we've got 146. So again, really, really nice. I really like this about Unraid, that it is very full featured. Some of the cons of Unraid is that out of the box, it really doesn't do much other than just act like a normal NAS. You do have to kind of know what you're doing, use a lot of plugins in here, use a lot of apps, basically Docker containers to get things running. Let's put it that way, right? Or full featured. But if you just want a simple NAS, you don't really need to install anything. It pretty much works outside of the box. Again, Unraid does have pros and cons. For me, the pros are it runs on commodity hardware. You can pretty much use it. My hardware here is not super high end, but it works flawlessly, no issues at all. Performance for my needs is pretty decent right now, and it allows me to use mixed drives in terms of capacity, and it just works. I think a couple of weeks ago I did a video on Unraid on how to upgrade a drive. So I upgraded this 4 terabyte to an 8 terabyte. Super seamless, super easy, no real issues at all, and everything just works fine. The downsides are, again, is that it is kind of not as powerful as you would think, or as you would want. It's not as resilient. It's not a proper, true, like NAS style software. It doesn't really utilize multiple drives to accelerate, either reading or writing. It uses its own methodology. Now, there's nothing wrong with that methodology, but, a lot of people will disagree with this methodology. Because again, there is a proprietary component on the way it, copies the files and does all these things. And again, if you want to recover from a broken array, it might not be as easy as, let's say, something in TrueNAS, which is more open source, more open standard. So that's pretty much it about the Unraid. I am really looking forward to the next update. So if you look at Unraid over here, their website, they are actually on 6.12 RC6. The version I'm running is 6.11.5. If you look here at the newer version, I'm really excited because, they're bringing in ZFS, right? So how it's going to be implemented, I'm not really sure at this moment. I don't know if you can actually format these drives as ZFS over here. Right now, they're using XFS, which again is also a very high-end, enterprise level file system. So I'm not really worried about XFS, but ZFS is the new hotness. So I'd really be interested to see how this would integrate ZFS into Unraid. Another thing is that what I really like about Unread is that it uses newer Linux kernels. So again, hardware compatibility is right up there. It's really good. Very rarely you find hardware that doesn't work with Unread. For the most part, because of the newer kernels, it just works. So I'm super happy with that part. That's pretty much it. I really do like Unread. It's been running super well for me for the longest time. And I really don't have any issues with Unraid, other than the fact that I would like a more robust NAS system. So that's going to conclude today's video. In the next video, we're going to have a look at Rockstor NAS. Rockstor seems to be really, really nice. I really like the concept behind it. We're going to talk about Rockstor, what it is. We're going to run it on Proxmox. So what I'm going to do, the methodology I'm going to use is I'm going to create 3 disks, so to speak, to simulate like at least a RAID 5. So these 3 disks are going to be 64 gigabytes each, and I'm going to have a 32 gigabyte boot disk, and I might even have another 32 gigabyte cache disk if it's needed, for example, for ZFS or whatnot. So I might have all of that. Will I be doing benchmarks? Maybe, because I'm going to be running it virtualized. I don't think that's a really good indicator of benchmarks. It should be bare metal if you want to do benchmarks, but I might do a little bit here and there just to kind of see the performance of the NAS and how it works. What I also am interested in is to see the load that's being put on my Proxmox host. My Proxmox host is not the most powerful machine. It is only a i5-8500T. However, I will be giving the NAS for all these NASs 4 cores. Testing Unraid in terms of benchmarks or not is a little bit of a moot point because the way I have the share set up, I could, of course, set up a share with cache and without cache. But if it's with cache, we're going to be, pinging this SSD. So it's going to be lightning fast. It's going to basically saturate the 1 gigabit network. In fact, even all my drives here can saturate a 1 gigabit network. So, benchmarks might not be the best thing to do for Unraid in this installation, but going forward, Rockstor and other NAS softwares, I will be doing benchmark because the disk on this Proxmox NAS is a NVMe SSD, SN570. Not the fastest drive, but a very decent drive. So I will be doing benchmarks at least on the other products. So that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully, you'll tune in to the other videos that I do. And if you do have any other software that I've overlooked that you would like me to have a look at, definitely post in the comments. This series is just getting started. We had a quick look at Unraid. And again, the whole objective of this video is to look at the different NAS softwares. I'm not really looking to change for the sake of changing. I really want to look at the NAS software to see if they bring me any functionality that's important for me before I decide to change. And, if I do make the decision to change to that NAS software, I will catalog, and video the procedure and my journey of how I did it. Now, I'm already thinking about it. I might have to bite the bullet and, buy a couple of large drives just as a temporary thing, storage thing. But we'll see. We'll see how that works. Or I might even use some sort of a temporary cloud type of storage to copy to the cloud and then bring it down again. That's going to be interesting because my upload speeds, I'm on cable. It's not the fastest, but my download speeds are a gigabit. So we're definitely going to have a look at all these options and see which works best. This is provided I do change. Anyways, hopefully you like this video. If you like this video, give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and see you later.